Budgeting, a common man's struggle. Our Asiya is reaching the age of marriage. We should start preparing her dowry, so that we can marry her off as soon as we find a suitable match. These words from his wife had stolen Siddiqui Sahib's sleep. But he couldn't bring himself to tell her that their budget had been severely strained for the past few months. Forget saving, his salary barely lasted until the end of the month. And under these circumstances, arranging a dowry seemed impossible. Siddiqui Sahib had always valued budgeting for two main reasons. First, he had loved mathematics since his student days. Second, he was in charge of accounting at a factory. Like everyone else, he had dreamed of acquiring higher education and becoming a big man. But fate had other plans. He lost his parents at a young age and had to shoulder the responsibility of supporting his family. It was only thanks to the factory owner, who honored his late father's loyalty, that he secured a job at the mill, ensuring their daily bread. However, this came at a cost. His dream of higher education remained unfulfilled. He became so entangled in factory accounts that he never realized how time had slipped away. Today, his son was in university and his daughter was attending college. It was only through his lifelong practice of frugality, managing meager earnings with strict budgeting, that he had been able to provide his children with an education while maintaining their middle-class dignity. He had always lived a simple life and taught his children to do the same. Every month, before receiving his salary, he meticulously planned the household budget and spent accordingly. But now, inflation had engulfed everything, making it impossible to stick to a budget. He had begun to realize that budgeting was a luxury only governments could afford. Ordinary citizens like him were left with nothing. One day, when the shopkeeper handed him the bill for a month's groceries, he snapped, "Are you charging me extra now?" The shopkeeper, equally frustrated, replied, "Siddiqui Sahib, what world are you living in? Prices have skyrocketed everywhere. When we receive expensive goods, how can we sell them at old rates? You tell me." Defeated, Siddiqui Sahib silently handed over the money, adding the remaining balance to next month's account, and walked away. His son had repeatedly offered to take up a part-time job after university to ease his father's burden. But each time, Siddiqui Sahib had sternly refused. He insisted his son focus entirely on his studies, having instilled in his children the values of obedience and contentment. His son never dared to disobey him, even though he understood their financial struggles. Siddiqui Sahib had suffered through tough times himself and didn't want his children to face the same hardships. His deepest wish was for his son to complete his education and become successful. Perhaps then, through his son, his own dreams would finally come true. But inflation was rising at such a terrifying rate that he feared his son might be forced to drop out and start working before completing his degree. Determined to find a way to increase his income, Siddiqui Sahib considered starting a small business alongside his job. However, he dismissed the idea immediately, realizing that even a modest business required time and capital, both of which he lacked. After much contemplation, he decided that as soon as the factory owner returned from his summer vacation in London, he would request a salary raise. When the elder factory owner was alive, employees received bonuses and salary increments every year. But now, the mere thought of the current owner made his heart sink. If only I had gotten a government job, he thought regretfully. Government employees at least received regular raises, and by now he would have been close to retirement. But a poor man never truly retires. Government workers could go on strike and demand higher wages, forcing authorities to comply. The government, in turn, would impose new taxes, making everything even more expensive. Meanwhile, if an ordinary worker dared to ask for a raise, he was at risk of being fired. A few days later, when the factory owner returned, Siddiqui Sahib prepared himself to make his case. The factory manager, however, advised him against it, saying, "Siddiqui, you know things aren't the same anymore. Every other day, people are being laid off. Asking for a raise right now is sheer foolishness. Be grateful you're still getting paid on time. The manager's real concern was that if Siddiqui Sahib got a raise, other employees would follow suit, creating more problems for him. But Siddiqui Sahib replied calmly, "Sir, please let me meet the owner. I only want to tell him that my situation has changed. The rest is up to him." He was confident that the owner knew his family had been loyal to the factory for years. To his surprise, not only did the owner listen attentively, but after some consideration, he approved a slight salary increase. However, in return, Siddiqui Sahib was assigned additional responsibilities to cover for recently dismissed employees. Now, by the time he reached home, he was so exhausted that he barely had the energy to talk. A few days after his raise, he turned on the .tv to catch the news. The screen flashed with breaking news: government decides to drop another inflation bomb on the public. After increasing fuel prices, electricity tariffs are set to skyrocket. Another blow to the people post-budget. Stay tuned for exclusive updates. Our channel was the first to break this news. Hearing this, Siddiqui Sahib immediately turned off the TV. He closed his eyes and collapsed onto his bed. Tomorrow, he had a long day ahead. TV to catch the news. The screen flashed with breaking news: government decides to drop another inflation bomb on the public. After increasing fuel prices, electricity tariffs are set to skyrocket. Another blow to the people post-budget. Stay tuned for exclusive updates. Our channel was the first to break this news. Hearing this, Siddiqui Sahib immediately turned off the TV. He closed his eyes and collapsed onto his bed. Tomorrow, he had a long day ahead.